today we are back again with Penny Tarot. But before that, thanks a lot for liking, sharing, and subscribing to our YouTube and Spotify channels and writing in your suggestions and your comments. If you haven't written or subscribed to our channel, please do. And please remember to press the bell icon so that you can get all your updates. So, Penny, a warm welcome to you on our channel.
Thank you so much, Anuradha. It's delightful to be back with you.
So, Penny, we look forward for some different and some very, you always give, you have given, in the last video, it was much appreciated, where you had given some points which are very different from the way we see things, the way we reflect on them. So what is it that we are going to get something very different and new from you today?
Well, actually, the talk today, I decided to do this because of a comment that was on the last video. And I was so pleased with this comment because it had a little maybe tinge of being critical, but not really. But it was clear that this person was deeply reading Shastra and deeply trying to understand. And the comment was when I used the word natural malefic. And this person pointed out that in Parashara, the word that's used is Krura, Samya and Krura, so kind and cruel. And I thought about how wonderful it is that someone took the trouble to say that. And then it always makes me think of the enigma of the sun, because the sun is classified as, if we use the word malefic or a papa graha or something along those lines, Krura, and yet it's the sun. And so I thought it might be very interesting to look at this idea that when we are interpreting the sun, we have to take into account that there is a kind of central enigma about it. Because how can the giver of all life be malefic or papa? So I thought I would talk about that today.
So we are going to talk about sun, which is the giver of life, with Penny Tarot. And as you said, it's the enigma of for all of us. So why do we consider it a papa graha? I mean, you're correct when you say that we should be saying it a papa graha. We should be calling it a cruel planet or somebody which is stern. So can you reflect on something that you mean to, use the word Krura? How would you reflect on it?
Well, first of all, that is exactly what's used in the shloka. As soon as Prashna unfolds the names of the grahas, very next shloka, he is giving their inherent nature, their naisargika nature, which is always going to be there, even if they wind up becoming temporal benefics in some way, shape, or form. They're still inherently, that nature will show through. And so when he defines those, he includes the sun as krura, as cruel. And yet, we're also very well aware of the reverence of the sun in the tradition. And so these are the things I want to reflect on. The sun in the tradition represents the all-pervading Atma. In fact, in Vedanta, there's teaching examples, drishyantas, that talk about the sun as the source of everything. We know it's the giver of all life, just practically speaking, without Vedanta, without anything. Nothing grows. And the most telling thing is the third thing, that among the gunas, the sun is sattva. And so the other, let's call them all-time papa grahas, which would be Saturn, Rahu, Ketu, and Mars, they're given tamaguna. The conditional papa grahas, moon, depending on how much light it has, Kshina moon is what Prashna talks about. It's considered also malefic, but yet it is not tamaguna, and neither is Mercury. So the two that are, I call them the swingers. Depending on the chart, they swing between benefic and malefic, depending on the local conditions of the chart. So, but it's interesting, the four that are tamoguna are the all-time papagrahas. And where does that leave the sun? Because the sun is a problem in a chart, we know that. And why is it a problem? What is it about the sun that, although sattva, although we worship the sun, you can go to the beach where I live, even here in the US in Florida, a large number of people are on the beach doing, their yoga, or even if they're not into that at all, they're still there because they reverence the rising sun. There's something about us from time immemorial where we revered the sun rising. We knew it was important that that sun was rising. So, however, if you hang out on the beach too long in Florida or in other places, you're going to get burned to a crisp, right?
Right.
So it's in this sense, I think I have a little slide for that the sun becomes Krura because the sun is a ball of fire. It burns. Wherever it is, it burns. So if we're looking to understand the function of the sun in a particular kundali, in a particular chart, we need to take into account both of these ideas, that the sun essentially is the giver of life, the sun is sattvic, the sun has this dharma of that it fulfills every single day, whether we see it or not. It rises, it's steady, it's there. It organizes our whole solar system because of its gravity. Our whole solar system is organized around the sun. So it's essential. And yet, the classification is it's Krura. So where does that leave us as Jyotishis in terms of interpretation? What do we do with this? So I thought we might look at a chart to see how we see this dual role of the sun. And of course, if we're going to look at a chart, we might as well look at the chart of someone utterly amazing, which is Swami Vivekananda. So everybody, I'm sure, is very familiar with Swami Vivekananda, the brilliant disciple of Ramakrishna. And as a very young man, he met Ramakrishna, who was drawn to him by his magical voice. This is a subject for another time. Swami Vivekananda's voice, as seen in this particular kundali, is out of the park. I mean, it's just unbelievable. We want to draw our attention, though, to the sun and its function. So we all know in a Sagittarius chart, the sun is the lord of the ninth. And the sun only owning one Rashi, this will be the only ascendant that the sun achieves this, being the lord of the ninth. And the lord of the ninth is the highest of the dharmasthas. And so here in a Sagittarius chart especially, we're going to have to think of the sun in terms of representing this all-pervading dharma. And in his chart, the sun is sitting in the ascendant. And this is going to give us the perfect contrast in the way the sun functioned in his life. So this sun, please notice, has no affliction whatsoever. There's no yutidrishti with any malefic on his ascendant, not even flanking by malefics. It's a beautiful ascendant, except that the sun's there. And will that show up? Yes. It'll show up in both ways. On the side of this exalted light, it will show up, and on the side of an issue for him, because it burns. And there's no problem with the fact that the sun has dual functions. We have dual functions in our life.
Many.
So I remember My teacher would always say, when this kind of question came up, well, I don't understand. It's doing this, but it's also doing this, and I don't understand why it's like this or why it's like that. And he would always say, Penny, are you a mother? Yes, I am. Are you a child? Yes, I am. Are you a student? I am. Are you a wife? I am. Are you a teacher? Yes. What are you? I said, well, I have all those roles. So why are you limiting what you're thinking about a graha? They will have many roles. And so in Swamiji's chart, that sun is going to have different roles depending on the question that you're asking. So if we're talking about a great Swami who brought the whole Shadarshana Vedanta to the West, then we're talking about the sun as the representation of Dharma. And this sun is Vargotama. It's in the same Rashi in the main chart as it is in the Navamsha chart.
Yes.
So it has that, also has that strength. So we know that he brought this light to the West through the power of his voice. He was actually not invited. He became invited to speak. He arrived in the US to go to this first parliament of world religions, which included the Eastern religions. And so his intention was to go there and speak, but he first stopped in Boston and was told that if you didn't have an invite, you can't speak. And he so impressed faculty at Harvard with his intelligence and his radiance that they wrote to the organizers and said, he must speak. He must speak. And so at that conference, he didn't speak until a little bit later. He noticed everybody had, their papers that they were going to talk from, all of that. And he was called to the platform, and he went up, of course, with nothing. And he relates later that when he got there and he looked out, that it was 2,000 delegates there. He looked, this is 70 something. It was hard to get to the US then. So he looks out at all these delegates and he goes inside and prays to Saraswati. And then he says, sisters and brothers of America, 5 words. The whole place erupts in this thunderous applause. It went on for 2 minutes.
And he was given just 2 minutes to speak.
No, he spoke after that.
Yes,
but
after
the 2 minutes.
He was told that he can speak for only 2 minutes, and those 2 minutes were taken up by the thunder
Exactly.
of.
But he did speak. They let him speak.
They
and
let
then
him
he was
speak
like,
for 1 straight hour.
Yeah, he was like the rock star. Every time he came, it was unbelievable. So that light is what I'm trying to say, that the sun represents
Beautiful.
Dharma. It's the highest bhava of Dharma and then we see Dharma also 159. Those are the Dharma trines. Look how beautiful it is. He has the 5th Lord in the 5th, and then he has his Lagna Lord, obviously Dharma trine, in Sambandha, in a relationship. So all of the Dharma trines are interconnected. And this is how we read the Purusha Dharma in the chart, by the interconnecting in the Dharma houses especially. So this is so beautiful. But
this is so beautiful. Yes, this is really very beautiful. Yes.
But here's the but. The sun has the other role. And the other role is it burns.
Exactly.
And so in Swamiji's chart, he has the sun in his first bhava. And so what will burn? First bhava. Yes. So the sun is Krura. And also it's the Kataka for the first bhava, in the first bhava. And we know we have Kataka, Bhava, Sha. So there can be an issue for the body. And if we now look from this lens at Swamiji's chart, we'll see that not only is the first bhava having the sun there, but the lord of the first, Jupiter, now is under affliction. So Jupiter is only afflicted, right? So here we have a dual role for Mars. If we're speaking in terms of Dharma, Mars is a representative of Dharma. It's owning the fifth. It's beautiful from that point of view. And it's a burning Dharma, isn't it? It's a fierce Dharma. He's protecting Dharma. He's a warrior for Dharma. But if we're looking at the sun, at Mars as the Papa Graha, which it is, it's afflicting the Lagna Lord. And his Lagna Lord is not really strong, is it? There's no Swarashi, it's not Ucha, there's no real intrinsic strength in Jupiter. And so he worked so hard. He traveled, he did all of this, spreading Dharma. And then, unfortunately, the body breaks down. And he did pass very young, 39 years old, in his Jupiter Dasha. So here we have, in a kind of nutshell, a resolution, I would call it, to the question of how do we deal with the sun in a horoscope. We have to look at it through the lens of both. That it is Krura, it's a ball of fire. But does it have malice? No. The sun burns because it can't do anything but burn. Even the sun's wife had an issue, right?
Right, Chaya, yeah.
Loved her husband. In fact, I would say that everything I have said is embedded in that tale. And this is true of so many of the tales. It's mythology. No, they're teaching tales,
yes,
to a large degree. And if we think about Sanya, the wife of the sun, she loved her husband. She bore him children. But the intensity of the sun was unbearable. So she had to somehow resolve that. And she, of course, put her shadow, Chaya, installed as the wife. But later, when that all got worked out, the sun allowed himself to have his rays shaved off by her father, Vishwakarma.
Yes.
And so if the sun could continue to have a haircut from time to time, then she could continue to live with him. And so we have to think about it that way. We have to think about modulating, if we have, wherever the sun is, some way of offsetting, some way of modulating that burning quality through some sort of either lifestyle change, some sort of prayer. And of course, the prayers to the sun, there's nothing like the prayers to the sun. Gayatri Mantra, most sacred Maha Mantra, the Aditya Hridayam, beautiful. And so if you do this kind of propitiation, in your heart, then some of these other qualities of the sun can get ameliorated in some way. So this is the lesson for us to understand the dual functioning of the sun. It's a paradox, isn't it? And yet it's a resolvable paradox if we're creative about how we look at the chart, if we aren't stuck in it has to be this way, it has to be that way. Because a chart is a very creative, interpreting a chart is a very creative endeavor. We have to deeply understand in that particular ecosystem. Every chart is like an ecosystem. You have the same combination and it doesn't grow well in one chart and it flourishes beautifully in another. And so it isn't a cookbook. It always has to be created. It's like a puzzle with all these pieces. When it's finally put together, you get a beautiful picture.
Thank you so much, Penny. That was so beautiful. And yes, as you said, Swamiji faced a lot of, his body faced a breakdown. His Atma was still very strong and going. And he left a lot of things that were to be done, but he had left specific instructions on how to go about doing those things. And that's so apt that a person like him, he is said to be the sun who showed the West the knowledge that sun represents of the East. He put us on a map that we could never even imagine at that point of time, because um, people were not from the east were not taken as seriously as that. And yes, his body, when you read about how he left his body, there is a lot of things he burned. As the sun burns, as you say that the sun burns, and as the sun burns, it diminishes itself to give radiance to others. You see a very strong parallel in Swamiji's life also. So that was
I
a
want to
big.
make one more comment about what you just said about not being so accepted by the West. I don't have the exact quote, but there was one newspaper who was basically extolling, and this is back at that time, extolling Swamiji. And he said, it's embarrassing to think that we're sending missionaries to a country that produces this kind of person. It's embarrassing that we think we have something to teach them. This is totally paraphrasing. It's not exactly how it was, but the concept was there of how dare we impose. But that imposition is going on to this very day, isn't it?
So I'm
So
really very happy for to, coming from the West and you saying it in those times. Today, everybody acknowledges yoga is something that is practiced worldwide, and a lot of things have been put into the system as if they are, and people are taking it in their lifestyles like a duck takes to water. But in those days, it was very difficult to even influence people. If you read, I mean, if we read Swamiji's story, we see how badly he had also been treated by many who were ignorant. It's not
that's
their
right.
fault, but they were ignorant. But as the paper says, that, to imagine, it's beautiful. Thank you so much, Penny,
Oh,
for
you're
saying.
welcome. My pleasure.
Thank you. Please hit the bell icon for fresh updates. Don't forget to like, share, and comment on the videos, and please subscribe to our channel.